recording. All right. So in P5, I'm logged in. I'm going to open up the self-portrait that I was working on last time. Here's my self-portrait version 1. And I was kind of talking about like colors and stuff here. So there's like a lot of comments relating to colors. We're going over the different types of color values and adding in the transparency as well. It's not letting me preview. Oh, whoops. Looks like I accidentally typed a bunch of stuff here. So let's take a look at that again. Okay. I'm going to comment out the save part for now so I can update it without downloading an image every time. And for that one, that's another key command that adds a comment to a line, which is just control and then the question mark slash forward slash key. And so you can quickly comment in or out a line of code, which is a good way to take it out if you would just want to bring it back later. So that's another thing that I use comments for a lot. So yeah, here's my self-portrait. So I want to make some changes here. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to go over uploading the project to submit. So yeah, if you guys have any questions as I'm going through stuff, always feel free to interrupt me. You don't need to follow along with everything that I'm doing in this particular demo because your self-portrait obviously is going to look different. So if you want to just watch and then get started once I'm done with the demo, that's fine. You don't need to kind of do everything that I'm doing. Yeah, I'll try to just go relatively quick so that you guys will have a good amount of time to work on your own projects during class. So let's see. What do I want to do? Okay, I'm going to demonstrate the multiple line select first, so I don't forget to do that. Maybe I'll go over the key commands that I was talking about last time again. Let me increase the font size to make this a little more visible, hopefully. Okay. Okay, so just to quickly go over some of the key commands. So a lot of the key commands are available if you go up to Help and go to Keyboard Shortcuts. You can see a lot of different commands here that are very useful. Actually, some of these I'm not that familiar with. You can see the comment line one here. And this is a little bit confusing, but that little up arrow, you guys might not know this, but that up arrow means control. That's like a shortcut or a shorthand for the control key on the keyboard. So like, for example, this tidy command is really useful. If I do Command Shift F, it's going to format all my code for me. So if I have some like weird indentations and stuff like this, and then I just hit Control Shift F, it's going to fix that for me. So that's a really useful one to just use all the time. Another key command that's useful that I think I showed last time is just if I hit Control C on a line, it's going to copy that line, even if it's not completely selected. And then I can just hit Control V to paste it. And then if I want to get rid of a line without having to use the mouse or selecting, I can hit Control X to remove a line. And I can even remove these little blank lines using Control X. Actually, I did get a extension to show my keys. Is it still on here? No. What was it called? It had some weird errors, so I took it off, but it did work a little bit. Okay, it's not still on here, so I'll have to find it later. Anyway, and then the last one is the multiple line select. So I have these like eyes, or let's use the inside eyes. So I have them at 80, 80, in both cases, like away from this plus 80. So they start at 200. That's the X value, which is like in the middle here. And then one eye is plus 80 to the right this way. And the other eye is negative 80, which goes to the left this way. And so let's say I wanted to edit both of those. There's only two of them, so it wouldn't be that hard. I would just like turn this into a 6 and turn this into a 6. And now I have like a cross-eyed character, which is kind of funny. Um, but if I wanted to do it a little bit more quickly, and if I had like a lot of lines of code, that's when it's like really useful to do this. I can hold Control and Shift and then hit the down key. Oh, no. Oh, actually, that's kind of funny. It's switching these lines, which might look kind of crazy, but I'm actually just switching these lines around, which um, is another shortcut. If you want, if you want, sorry, I'm doing a different shortcut right now. If you want to move a line down like that, you can just hold Control and Shift, and I'm hitting the up and down arrows. But what I want to do is select multiple lines. So maybe that's Control and Alt. Yeah, that's Control and Alt. I think it's different depending on what computer you're on. I think on Monday I was on a Mac, and so I think it was Control Shift on a Mac, but on a PC I think it's Control Alt. And so now I have the cursor on two lines, and so I can edit both lines at the same time. And so that makes it a little bit faster if I want to see, uh, you know, the difference. Maybe I would do like 65. And then I could also, whoops, go back and edit this 200 if I wanted to bring the eyes down a little bit. Maybe I would do like 205. Oh, that's the X, never mind. Let's leave 200. So on the Y, if I did 305, I could bring them down a little bit. If I did 310, could bring them down a little bit farther. So maybe now it's looking like my self-portrait is kind of staring at something in front of it, like a computer or something. Maybe we could make like a little computer screen at the bottom. Um, but yeah, that's basically how you do that. And then to get out of it, I just hit the escape key. And so that brings my cursor back to one line. So it's one of those key commands where it's kind of confusing to use. Um, but if it's, if the first time you use it, you'll probably do some weird thing and it might get messed up. But if once you get used to it, it's pretty useful. Okay, I'm seeing there's a couple of questions, so let me take a look at those. We're still going to go over the previous homework code. Levita, when you say the previous homework code, which one are you referring to?
The one that was due Monday, you said on Monday that today will, I think, yeah, today we'll go over like the homework for anyone who posted it for the artwork.
Oh, yes, yes. For
Mm-hmm.
anybody who posted since Monday, yeah, I forgot about that. Let's do that after the demo.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll do that. Thanks for reminding me. And Maria said, I was looking at Blackboard, not sure what the debugging assignment is. So the debugging assignment we'll do in class next week. Basically, what that is we're going to talk about how to fix your code when there's problems. And we haven't really talked a lot about this yet, but you guys have probably noticed this as you're writing code. If you make a mistake, like if I forgot like a C at the end of the circle, or at the beginning of the circle, and I try to run the program, you'll get like a little red line on the code. So I'm assuming you guys have seen this at some point when you've been writing code. And what that means is that you have an error in the code. And so usually P5 will kind of tell you something like, uh, they give you some message that says like, it seems like you may have accidentally written Urkel instead of circle. Please correct it to circle if you wish to use the function from P5.js. And so what we're going to do with the debugging assignment next week is I'm going to give you some code that has a lot of errors in it, and then you guys are going to have to find the errors. And we're also just going to talk about different strategies for debugging. So that's just an in-class assignment. Usually we just do it in class, and it's not really, it's not like a creative assignment like most of the other assignments. So yeah, we'll talk about that more next week. Any other questions? Okay, cool. So let's finish up the self-portrait and then I'll go over how to submit it and then we'll do some lab time. So I think I already went over like the colors. I just kind of want to finish the self-portrait uh, that I'm working on, and I might go over a couple things that we've kind of review a couple things that we've already used, like I might like add some lines and stuff, and maybe like a triangle or something. And I'll just finish this up and then post it. So maybe I'll keep working with what I've got here. I think it might be kind of funny to add like a book or a computer in front of my self-portrait, since I've already got um, the eyes kind of like focusing in the middle. Um, so let's do that. I'm going to add like a little computer screen uh, in here, and then maybe I'll add like a little bit of hair, and then I think that'll be good enough. So I'll put a computer screen kind of like at the bottom of the screen, and I could probably use a triangle, but it might be easier to use a quad in this case. So I think we talked about quads before. A quad is like a triangle, but it has like 4 points instead of 3 points. And so if I want to make a quad, it's a good idea to always look at the reference when you're trying to make something. So I'm going to click on the reference, and let's go to shape, and let's go to quad. Or actually, another way that I could do this, why don't I do this another way? Since we've already covered quad, and we saw this in one of you guys's projects from last week, maybe I'll use a begin shape. So that could be a good thing for people to see if they want to try to use that. So begin shape is another way of creating a shape where you just add points, and then you can make the points go together. And there's different ways to do that. So um, usually you just say begin shape, and then you add vertexes. So vertex is just a word for like a point, and a vertex has 2 or 3 points. So X, Y, or X, Y, and Z. So each one of these vertexes is just 2 points. And there's more text here, but in some ways this is like easier to understand because you're looking at each point individually, as opposed to the quad or the triangle, which are like lining up this whole long line of points, which can be hard to read. And then you can decide how the shape should look. So N shape with close makes this normal shape with a fill. Begin shape with points just actually adds points. Begin shape lines just draws lines. I think it looks like it's every other point. And then no fill, begin shape. So this adds some lines with no fill. And then we have end shape close here. And then you can also do a shape with triangles. So it fills in triangles instead of just going through each point. Triangle strip looks kind of cool. It just fills in the triangles between the points. Triangle fan, begin shape quad. So there's a lot of different like quad strip. There's a lot of different ways that you can create a shape. Oh, this is cool. Uh, Tess makes kind of like it adds the points together, but has like a cutout here. So that could be a cool way to make a shape. Maybe I'll do something like that for um, the. I'll put something on the front of the computer. Um, oh, that's WebGL only. Okay, never mind. We'll ignore that for now. But yeah, let's do begin shape since we haven't done it before. So this will make it a little bit easier for me to design my computer. So I'll just start with where do I want to go? Over here. Okay, so I'm going to start with begin shape. And this is basically just telling P5, that I want to start this new shape. And then I have to add as many vertexes as I want in the shape. So I'm going to start with a vertex. I'll try to put it like kind of at the bottom of the character's head, which since the whole setup is like 400 or 600, that's probably around 400 on the Y. But for the X, I'll just put it a little bit over. So I'll put it on like 20X 400Y. And then I'll put another vertex on the other side of the screen. So I know the width is 400. I'll just do 400 minus 20 and 400y. So again, I'm just using some math here. Instead of trying to figure out what this actually is, I know I want this to be evenly divided. So I'm just starting at 20 and then going all the way across the screen, which is 400, and then subtracting 20. So I know that'll be the same distance. And then I'm going to say end shape, and I'm going to say close. So we're going to fill in the shape. And okay, so there we get the top of my computer screen. And so now the nice thing here is I can just add another vertex and it'll put it in here. So let's add a vertex that's kind of like at the bottom of the screen and a little bit in from where this guy is. So I'll just copy this first vertex actually. Or actually, I'm going to copy both of these and just move them down. So I'll copy these two and paste them. And then if I want to use my cool double line selection or multi-line selection, I can tab this 400 over so that it lines up with the other 400. JavaScript doesn't really care very much about like this extra space. And now I can do Control Alt on Windows or probably Control Shift on Mac and select both of these 400s and do a 600. And now I'll hit Escape. And okay, now we have our computer set up, but we have it crisscrossing. So let's take our vertex at the bottom and put it above. And so now we've got it. And let's put a fill here. So the stroke is 50, so I'm going to do fill 50. Oops. Oops. Okay. And I'm going to bring the computer bottom in a little bit. So instead of -20, I'll do like -40. And instead of 20, I'll do 40. Okay, that looks cool. So now I have my computer screen. Let's put a little like logo on the computer screen. Maybe I'll do like a goofy Windows logo. So I'll just use some rectangles. So I'll say rectangle. I'm going to try to guess where the middle of the computer is. It's probably at 300, or no, 200 is the middle of the screen. Maybe like 500 on the Y. And let's make it kind of small. So I'll do like 20. As the width, and I'll say fill is, let's match our character. We'll say plum for the fill and no stroke. Okay, so I've got one little rectangle, and let's do another one. I'll just, well, I probably need to do like -20, and I'll do this one at +20. Okay, that's too far. Let's do -10 and +10. And oh yeah, I want a little gap in between. So let's do -11 and +11. Okay, and then I'll copy these. This probably isn't that interesting. I don't know why I'm putting so much detail into this, but let's just move these guys down. I'll probably want to do 521 since it's 20 high. Okay, there we go. I got a little Windows logo on my computer screen. And what was the last thing I wanted to add some hair to my character. So that's the last thing I'll do, just to go over lines, because I think we haven't done a lot with lines so far. So I'm gonna use some lines to add some hair to the top of the self-portrait. I'm not gonna do anything like really crazy looking. I'm just gonna add some like goofy lines sticking out. So for a line, remember I have to do, lines are different from our other shapes. Like we have to do 2 points and P5 connects them together. And then as I move them, I'm not just moving 1 point, I have to move both points. So I'll do a first line and I'll try to match it to the top of my character, which is gonna be like maybe around 100, something like that on the Y, and maybe 100 on X as well. So I'll do like 100, 100. And I'm going to move the line over. So I'll do like 120, 120, something like that. And we don't have a stroke right now. So let's put the stroke back on 50. Okay. So that's pretty close. So this dot right here is 100, 100, and this dot down here is 120, 120. So when you're working with lines, it's hard to keep I feel like it's hard to keep, in your head, but the first two numbers are an XY coordinate. It's like 1 point, and the second two numbers are another XY coordinate. It's another point. So when we're moving the line, when I move these points, they're going to move independently of this point. So I think my hair needs to be uh, a little bit longer. So let's see, how can I do that? And I think it needs to be sticking up a little bit more. So the first point here should be higher. So if I want to go higher, I actually have to put a smaller number. Starts at 0 and gets bigger. That's pretty good. That's pretty close to what I want. I might move this one over a little bit and just see. No, I like the other one better. Okay. So now what I want to do is just make like, I don't know, 5 or 6 of these. So I'm just going to copy this line and paste it. And so remember, I have to move all of my points. Um, uh, like if I want to move x, I have to move both x's. So the first x is this first number, and the second x is the second number. And again, I can just use math to do this. Instead of like trying to add it in my head, I can just say like plus 20, and then do 120 plus 20. So that'll move both x's. I probably want to go a little bit farther than that because I don't want to make a million of these. Okay, that's pretty good. And then I can just keep going from there. So I can copy this and paste. And then I'll just increase this 40 again. I'll say like 80, 80. Okay, that's pretty good. And now I have like a pattern established, and so I can just keep following that pattern. So 80 plus another 40 is 120. And same thing over here. But another thing I could do, I don't have to keep doing addition. I could say, well, I don't really want to keep adding. I can just say 80 or 40 times 3. So I can do multiple things in here to make it a little bit easier for me to do the math. So 100 is where it starts, plus 40 times 3. So the third, or I guess this is the fourth hair, gets a multiply by 3. And we're going to learn a lot, like, more sophisticated ways of doing this with better programming structures. But I just want to keep emphasizing that we can use math here. We don't have to one of the things that's cool about programming is that we can make the code do the math instead of doing the math in our head. So now if I want to do that again, I just paste here, and now I'm just counting up by 1 instead of trying to add 40 to each one of these numbers. Okay, so that looks pretty good for my hair. I think it's relatively centered. And I think I'm basically happy with this self-portrait. So I'm going to move into actually documenting and submitting the assignment. Um, any questions before I continue uh, uh, with the submitting the assignment part?
Yes, I had one question about just sort of that last line. The only thing I could think of to make it, and it might be just like too complicated, so that's fine if it's very in depth. But like, if you wanted to have a ton of hairs, is there something that's like line minus 54 or something like that? Like, because it starts on line 54 and then every line after that is one higher. Like, if you wanted to have 50 lines of hair, right,
Yeah.
so that you wouldn't have to go through that a bunch. Or is that just like find that on your own because it takes a long time to explain, which I'm fine with.
Yeah, that's a good question, and that is the kind of question that I want you guys to be asking because, as I mentioned, this is not the best way to code this, but this is what we kind of know so far. So one of the things that's frustrating about learning programming is that most code, it's like it uses all of these different concepts at the same time, and each one of those concepts, is its own thing that you have to kind of figure out on its own. So what you're talking about is basically a for loop. And if we look at the schedule, we can see when we're going to learn that. It's not like until week 8. So if you want to do that, I'm pretty sure most of you guys could figure it out. If you just look at this code, this is how you would do it. You'd throw a for loop in there, and you'd let the loop do the work for you. But before we get here, there's a whole bunch of other things that we have to kind of learn before this will make sense on a more kind of like granular level. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that you should be thinking is like, this seems like there should be an easier way to do this. Like, instead of like copying the same line over and over and just like changing these numbers, we're using code. Shouldn't it be simple and fast? And you're right, there is a better way to do it, but it'll
The
be a
link
minute before
was.
we get there.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, any other questions? Okay, cool. So the next thing I'm gonna do is submit my assignment. So I'm gonna bring back my self-portrait V1 save thing here so that the
Um,
next, oh,
actually, I have a question.
yeah,
Is there any way you could add like an image into it?
yes, also a good question. And that is in week 5, text and image. So again, you could probably figure this out because the code is not that hard. This is how you add an image into a P5 sketch. So if you want to look at this and add it into your project this week, I encourage you to explore it. But yeah, we're still a couple weeks away from adding images. And a little bit, the order of the schedule is a little bit arbitrary. Like, there's not really a hierarchy of concepts when it comes to programming. Some concepts tend to be a little bit trickier than others, but it's also very different with different people. Some people, it's like something makes sense really quickly, and for other people, it's other things that they are, understanding more quickly. But yeah, so there's kind of an arbitrary order to these things. So, but yeah, also a good question. You can add an image. It is pretty easy to do. And so if you want to do that, just check out week 5, check out the image section, and just, there's some code here. Also in the reference, you can find most of the time if you're like, how do I do something? If you go to the reference and just type in what you want to do, like an image, usually it'll show you. So there's a couple things here. This one is probably the main, or this one is probably the best one, or this one, but let's see what this first one is. Yeah, this is not actually what you would want to do because this is actually creating an image, like adding the pixels to an image. But the image function is what you would want to use, and you can see that one here. So yeah, another good question. Okay. Uh, I'm gonna bring back my save function down here and run it again. So I've saved my self-portrait. I guess I already did that, but that's okay. And so now I'm ready to go over to the Open Lab. So I'm going to demo this. I already did this last time, but I'm just going to demo it a couple more times so we can just see the steps a few times. So I'm going to go over to the Open Lab. If you've been there before, usually I just go to a new tab and just type in Open Lab, and usually the link shows up somewhere, and I just find it and hit enter. Oh, this is it. Oh, this is like my old project. So let's just go to the Open Lab site. But you can also find the Open Lab under the home page here, or maybe you can't. No, I need to add a link here. Maybe it's up here. Oh yeah, here it is. Oh, but that's to the. Oh, here it is. Okay. Oh, but that's the wrong link. Okay. Oh boy, sorry. I'll put a link to this in the Discord. I need to update some of these things. Okay, so I'll just put this link in the Discord channel, but you should be able to find it. It's on the Blackboard as well. Anyway, so once I'm on the Open Lab, you have to be signed in. So make sure to sign in, and then you can hit the plus button to create a new post. And so there you are always going to get this like little red thing up here. It says please select a category before publishing this post. And so that just is reminding you to add a category. You can find the categories over in the right-hand menu. If you don't see that right-hand menu, there's this like little gear box thing here that opens that menu. And then this is on the post tab. There's also another tab for the specific blocks, but we're on the post tab. Go to categories, and there should be a category for all the assignments. And here's assignment 2. If you don't see it, you can type in here and look for self-portrait. And so here's assignment 2, self-portrait version 1. And now we can add a title, my self-portrait version 1. And I'm just going to start with the image this time. So last time I used this block and added the image through here, but you can also drag and drop. It's a little tricky, so I'll show you guys how to do that because it's not always easy to do. So I'm going to open up my file explorer. And when I save the image from P5, it usually goes to the downloads folder. So you can see my downloads folder here. It's a little messy, so I'm just going to delete some of this stuff. Okay, and there's my self-portrait version 1. Oh, this is from earlier when I saved it. But this is the updated one with the hair and the computer. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm just going to drag it on top of the browser. And the trick here is that depending on where you drag it, you may not see this little blue line that comes up. And it's kind of small and hard to see, but basically if you don't have that blue line, it's not going to add it incorrectly. It's going to do something weird where it'll like open a new page of just the image, or depending on what browser you're using, I don't know what will happen. But to get it actually into the post, we just have to wait until we get this blue line. And then when we drop it on the blue line, it'll show up in the post. And so that looks pretty good. And now we just have to put a little description and a link to the code. So I'm just going to say in my self-portrait, I am staring at my computer, my favorite activity. And then here is my code. And so for the code, you can just dump the link right in there and it'll work, but I usually like to add my link to some text. So I'm going to select the text that I want. I'm going to hold Shift and just select backwards over this whole sentence, and then just click this little link, but you can also hit Control K to do the same thing. It'll open up this link menu. And then I'm going to go back to this tab and just select the link from the browser bar and hit Control C to copy it. And then I'm going to hit Control V to paste here. And I'm going to turn on open in a new tab and then hit enter or click here to add the link. So now I'm almost ready to go. I'm going to preview this post. And there we go. You have my self-portrait version 1. And here's my text and here's my code. And there we go. That looks pretty good. And so now that I've done the preview, I want to publish. And when I publish, I'm going to get the permalink, which is the link where it's always going to be. So if you do come back and make updates later, you don't have to change the link. The link will stay the same. So I'm going to copy that link, and now I'm going to go submit on Blackboard. So I have Blackboard open over here. I'm going to go into the student preview mode and go to assignments. And here's self-portrait version 1. And remember, there's a rubric here, so you can always look at the rubric to make sure that you've done everything that you need to do. So we need a unique characteristic. Mine is, I guess, my computer that I added. And again, your self-portrait, you can really interpret this assignment very broadly. Like if you want to do something abstract, or if you want to do something that doesn't look like a person but might just have something to do with you or your interests, that's totally fine. The self-portrait is just kind of a jumping off point. So I added a unique characteristic. I did use shape functions. So that's good. I did use color functions. I used comments, so I need some good comments to explain the code. I made an Open Lab post, so that's good. And I saved an image in the Open Lab post, and I have a link to my code. So I've done everything I need to do here. So let's leave the rubric, and I'll just go down to write a submission. And for this one, just paste in the link to your Open Lab post. You don't need to write anything here because I'm just going to click on the link and then look at it there. So then click submit and make sure that the link that you post is not, if you're here on the editor window and you copy this, it's not like the actual published post. What you really want is the actual published post that's on the Open Lab, which is this one. So just make sure that you're pasting in the right one. And so then I'm done. I'm just going to click submit, and I'm all good. So I'm going to get out of this. Okay. So I think that's everything for just that assignment. Any questions on that assignment?
I have a question. So going back to the image, if I want an image as my background instead of a background color, I could do that, right? I just need to also make it like kind of transparent so that you'll actually see what's happening when I add my code or like my portrait of myself, or is it gonna no, it's gonna show up still because it's coming afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you can use the background function that way, but you don't really need to. You could just put like an image like where the background function is, and as long as the other stuff comes afterwards, it's going to be layered on top of that background. So yeah, I think what you're describing should work.
Okay. And if I was to have an image afterwards, say like I have like a book or something, can I do transparency to it because it's coming afterwards? But mm, can you do transparency to an image?
Yeah, you can. I think it's a little bit trickier than what I showed with the color, but let's see if we can. I'm going to go to the reference page and go to image. And so I think what you would have to use is this tint function. Let me see. Um, so you can tint an image, like you can change the pixels to like blue or something like that. And you can also set the transparency that way. So you can tint an image white, but then add transparency, and that would, I think, do what you're, yeah, here you go, tint transparency without changing color. So you could
Okay.
use that. This tint function, it would have to be before the image that you want to be transparent. Um, so yeah, you can do that. I've noticed with those tint functions, the performance is kind of bad, but if you're just like rendering it once and then saving an image, it should be fine. So yeah. Let me actually just stop recording, but if people have other questions, we can